I'm going to be talking to Richard Carlson, who's a director of energy policy and energy exchange at Pollution Probe, about the recent decision by the Ontario Energy Board to not allow a new natural gas pipeline in the Ottawa region. So welcome to the interview, Richard.
Thank you, Markham. It's good to talk to you again.
Well, likewise. Now, this decision by the Ontario Energy Board is raising some eyebrows. Why is that?
It's one of the few times that people can remember the Ontario Energy Board actually not allowing Enbridge to build a pipeline that it has proposed. So it is somewhat new in that the board actually pushed back on a lot of what Enbridge was saying, and saying you have to provide more details and you have to be able to rationalize it more, and that you need to show that you consider different options.
Now, this is, there was a 4-part replacement plan. It's for the Saint Laurent Ottawa North Pipeline. It's about 20 kilometers through the city's east end. And I guess Enbridge was saying that, look, this is old steel. It needs to be replaced. You would think that kind of a request would just be a rubber stamp.
You would think so. And I think in the past it has been. But even though the pipeline is old, Enbridge did not satisfy to the board's satisfaction or to the interveners like us that the pipeline did need to be replaced. While there were some problems with it, there was nothing provided in the evidence that showed that it was in imminent need of failure or that it was a risky pipeline and that needed to be immediately replaced.
Now, I think what's raising eyebrows is the fact that the city of Ottawa intervened and said, we actually are expecting to use less gas in the future, and therefore that we don't see the need for this. And that does sound kind of unusual, especially given the fact in Ontario, the Ford government has signaled that the province will be using more gas, particularly for electricity generation.
Well, as in many things, it gets complicated. Yes, you are right that the city intervened, and that's a great thing. And this is something that we need to be able to get more of in Ontario, because a lot of these decisions are happening obviously at the city level. And in the past, it's been very hard for cities to appear before the board to get their preferences, to get their desires, to affect the decisions of the board. So this has been very important, and the fact that Ottawa actually said, no, this is what we want. It is also, yes, you were right that the Ford government is looking at gas for electricity generation. The Ford government is also funding natural gas expansion in various parts of the province as well. Actually, Ontario consumers are financing that. But they are also looking at how to reduce gas in other areas, such as there's the hybrid heat pump pilot that the province is going to be launching, depending on the elections, I suppose, in a couple of days. So there's a bunch of different things happening all at the same time. And I think this pipeline really hit sort of the sweet spot of a lot of these things coming together. So you had the board not satisfied that this was, as I was saying, this was an imminent problem. So something that had to be dealt with now, that this was a safety issue. Enbridge did not satisfy that. So they were able to say, okay, maybe we can take a step back. This is not something that has to be decided immediately. And then you had the city come in and say they have their energy evolution plan, and they have some of the participants in the city, some of their customers saying, we actually plan to reduce our gas use, or in some cases, we plan to get off gas. So maybe the future of this gas pipeline is not what Enbridge is assuming it to be.
Is this likely to have implications for other jurisdictions?
I think so, because now you've seen the precedent that the cities can push back. The cities can take their community energy plans or their climate action plans, whatever they're calling them, and they can actually take them to the board and say, these are our plans. And these plans are indicating something, so you cannot go against that. What we've traditionally seen in Ontario and elsewhere is that communities come up with these community energy plans, and utilities, for the most part, either ignore them or they don't believe that the plans will be successful. So they continue kind of the status quo. So they kind of, without maligning a utility too much, they'd come in and say, that's great that you plan to reduce gas usage, but unless you can actually demonstrate that you're going to do that, we're not going to believe you. So we're going to continue on with the way we normally do things.
Right. And that, as a rule, I mean, it's a provincially regulated utility, correct? So if the
Yes.
if the province isn't giving the regulator a new direction, then why would the regulator cooperate if it saw that why would the utility cooperate if it didn't fit with their plans?
Exactly, but I think it also comes into a larger issue: is what is the future of gas utilities and what is the future of Enbridge Gas in Ontario? As we start looking into, as we move into net zero, we are going to have to get off unabated fossil gas combustion. So how can how can Enbridge Gas transition? How can we move towards using less fossil gas and Enbridge Gas to do what it says it's going to be doing for 10 years, to become an energy company and not just a gas pipeline company? And there was another decision before the board in 2021, I believe, on integrated resource planning, where the idea was that instead of Enbridge just replacing like for like, that they had to look at different options. So instead of building a new gas pipeline or expanding a new gas pipeline, that they could get paid or receive some sort of regulatory compensation for energy efficiency, for reducing demand, maybe for introducing heat pumps or district energy, and so they could be using that as a regulatory measure. So as you combine the two together, this would be a way of saying, okay, now that it's clear that city plans matter, that climate change plans by the different municipalities matter. Now it's up to Enbridge to really step up and say, this is how we can participate in reducing emissions while meeting our customers' needs.
Now, from the outside looking in, this seems like, I don't know, kind of a patchwork, Band-Aid kind of approach to addressing the issue of reducing natural gas consumption. Wouldn't it make more sense to have like a provincial climate plan, a provincial energy plan, where this is done more systematically?
Yes, it would. That is something we've always been called for, is that we really need a holistic plan as to what we're going to be doing here. And this, what you end up seeing is, in the absence of plans, is you end up seeing these fights being stuck at the regulatory level, which is not a great place for them. The regulatory level is not a good place to have nuanced conversations about the future of energy. It is a very good place to have discussions about whether or not a pipeline should be built. But we really need to have an understanding of what do we see the energy in the province going to be? How are we going to be meeting heating loads in the future without gas combustion? And what are the different measures we can do that? And what are the roles people can play? I think Enbridge can play a role if they really wanted to, but they have to step up and show that they can do a lot of these things. They can provide the services people need. But it does come down to the lack that we need more guidance from the province as to what they see as being the future of energy. And you can say that probably about most jurisdictions in Canada. What are we actually going to do? And how are we going to do it? And we've argued for a long time that we really need to include environmental considerations into the regulatory framework as well, so that the province should be able to give to the Ontario Energy Board, as part of their mandate, include economic considerations as well, and customer considerations and safety and reliability, all those traditional regulatory principles. But they should also consider GHG reductions and environmental implications at the same time, and preferably in partnership with a larger provincial plan.
Richard, thank you very much. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Markham.